Um, let's scooch ahead to other liberal things. Canada's changing immigration. And this is from the Fraser Institute. I should write this up or maybe do a video on it because there's a lot of wild things in
It
here.
it is truly staggering.
The average annual immigration was 617,618,000 from 2000 and from Y2K to 2015 compared to over double once the Liberals took power. There's no possible way that we could integrate any of those people in any sort of effective way. From the total number of immigrants increased at a simple average annual rate of 4% compared to 15% under the Liberals. Permanent admissions as a share of total admissions declined by 0.83 percentage points per year. So actually, permanent admissions were going down. Uh, anyways, this is a catastrophe, and this is quite literally why we are in the crisis we're in right now.
Yeah, if we're wondering why we're in a healthcare crisis, a housing crisis, an education crisis, it's because the Liberal Party of Canada, via the federal government of Canada, did not anticipate or did not plan or increase uh our public institutions to be able to handle this many people coming in. It is such a sorry, I'm getting a weird echo in my ear, guys. This does nothing to help Canada, and as a matter of fact, we've seen over the last 9 years how it's hindered us.
Can we bring up this infographic here? Because this shows that they figured out how to scam the system about roughly when.
Hmm.
So the infographic between non-permanent and permanent immigration versus it's purple versus green or blue, whatever it is. Look at this.
Holy Hannah.
So non-permanent is that students and temporary workers. They figured out how to scam the system because we really weren't budging for a very long time on increasing permanent immigration. Um, and so what they did was they started coming in as students and temporary workers.
Mhm.
And we started the whole industry of diploma mills to have these people come in. You can go to Joe Blow's strip mall trucking school
Mhm.
and graduate. And then all of a sudden, you get to be in Canada. And a lot of these temporary students come in and then they claim refugee status.
Yeah,
Um,
asylum. Yeah,
and
claim asylum.
so
Yeah.
this is their way where they started immediately gaming the system when
Yeah.
just see how it's 2014 sort of it's increasing, increasing, increasing. Now, I will give that we did have some labor shortages, particularly in the trades in some parts of this country. Why? Because your school counselor said everybody should be a teacher or a nurse, or get an arts degree, and then we're like, we don't have any carpenters.
That's right.
We could use some welders out here in Alberta, and so we did take in some temporary foreign workers to deal with those labor shortages. But then it flatlines, and then the Liberals get in, and then it's just wild. The only receding of the tide was during COVID.
Yeah, unprecedented immigration. But even at the time that we were experiencing labor shortages, while the government was telling us that they were, that they were dedicated to bringing in more people, I don't think the labor shortages that our key sectors were experiencing um, were calling for that level of
No,
infiltration by foreign workers. And 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 the crazy thing is when they're coming to Canada as temporary foreign workers, they are eating up all of the jobs that our young people would traditionally, so entry level positions that our young people would start their careers doing, and then they are taking advantage of our social safety net, while also going back to their countries of origin to
Right,
holiday. So, how is it that you're able to claim asylum and claim refugee status under some sort of like persecution? You know, I'm here because I'm being persecuted by my home country, and yet go back to that home country. If you're here as a refugee claiming asylum, if you go back to your home country, you should not be allowed re-entry into Canada because obviously it's safe enough for you to go back. So,
right, right. And there Syria has sort of sorted itself out with the help of the strong, stable hand of Donald Trump. Uh, there are a lot of people who probably need to go back home
mhm,
right away,
mhm.
right
Yeah,
away. And you know
yeah,
what? Honestly, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
right.
We just can't. We can't. It's not cruelty. We just can't. If you were fleeing persecution and death, that's gone. So,
Right. No, but it's this level of growth has just been untenable for Canadians and anybody accessing any public service in Canada knows this really well. You know, we've got how many people have died on healthcare waiting lists? Every person
right.
that arrives in Canada gets healthcare, including students and foreign workers. And so every foreign worker and student that comes into Canada actually displaces uh, Canadian citizens out of the healthcare cycle, out of the education cycle, and out of all of the public institutions that are meant to serve us first. And yet, this is what we've got.
Now, that's not the only immigration problem we are currently facing. So today, Blacklocks breaks the news, as
Mm.
Blacklocks always does, that the ISIS butcher, and I'm not using a cutesy turn of phrase, quite literally an ISIS butcher who butchered a crucified prisoner, Egyptian Mustafa El Didi and his son, they came to Canada. So
Uh-huh.
he has the ISIS butcher video in 2015. He comes to Canada. His son is denied permanent residency. So then he leaves, I think goes in through the United States, comes back in, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, stamped, you're in. Gets citizenship, the dad does. And then they are found just days, maybe hours away from causing a major mass casualty terror attack
Mhm.
in Toronto. And I think the Canadian security establishment, who's best known for their work on the truckers, um, they were tipped off by French police that this is going to be happening. So it's Ahmed El Didi and his son Mustafa. The son is Mustafa. He's Ahmed. I think it's Ahmed Mustafa El Didi. They were arrested July 28th by the RCMP. Um, they remain in custody. Thank goodness they didn't get bail. That's actually surprising to me, by the way.
Yeah,
Um,
well done for once.
yeah. So, last September 19th, I dug up this clip. Uh, he Mark Miller, who was fired, and then now he's at the Justice Committee, in the House of Commons. He said he is satisfied in the security screening. I dug up that clip. And I actually found another one too. I just didn't get a chance to post it before we came on air of well, Larry Brock, by the way, at a subsequent hearing was like, "What the hell is going on in your department?"
Yeah.
Like, what, you guys? This was to Dominic LeBlanc, who's the public safety minister. Dominic LeBlanc, at that very same hearing, also testified that he was completely confident and satisfied in the security screening
Uh-huh.
coming out of CSIS and CBSA and immigration. And it's like, what? Confident in what security screening
Yeah.
precisely? Because
Yeah.
now, thanks to Blacklocks, we know that there was none. And it would
Yeah.
seem as though the ministers knew there was none when they were testifying at these things.
Well, yeah, and that's the craziest thing is when you are letting fully radicalized members of foreign nations into the country, when there is video evidence of them being completely radicalized, completely anti-Western, uh, and dangerous to the Canadian public, obviously. How can you, with a straight face, say that everything is functioning perfectly and all is well within our public institutions, including Canadian Border Services, Immigration Canada? These are all federally funded departments that are wholly committed to DEI, that have completely lost the plot on their mandates and what they're supposed to do, and yet we have Liberal Party members defending their work like they're doing, like they couldn't be doing a better job. We're going to watch Mark Miller here.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
him up against Raquel
Mhm.
Dancho of Kildona and St. Paul, and she's just excellent at SECU. That's the security committee. Between her, Larry Brock, and Melissa Lantzman, they just cut through these liberal idiots like a hot knife through butter. And when you watch this, you're like, what is wrong with you, Eastern Canada? That you
Yeah.
reelected these people who oversaw terrorists getting into the country. Anyways, let's watch this.
Allowed 3 alleged terrorists into our country through the immigration streams that came ultimately from what we've learned from the RCMP through Globe and Mail reporting, came within hours of murdering an untold number of innocent people, Canadians and Americans, in the latest alleged terrorists that's been gained entry into Canada under immigration streams under your watch, sir. And unfortunately, though it's been several weeks since the first 2 and a few days since, or a few weeks since the second iteration, we've yet to find out how this has happened, and to my knowledge, you've made no commitment of how you're going to fix it and prevent it from happening again. What we do know and understand is that your government in the past has directed public servants to fast-track immigration procedures, to cut some corners, bring in people as quickly as possible. And now we have a situation where we have 3 alleged terrorists on our hands, so it is reasonable to believe there could be more. So what specific steps have you taken the past few weeks to ensure no more alleged terrorists can gain entry to Canada through our immigration streams?
Thank you for the question, MP Dancho. As you know, there are a number of elements about this case that I cannot discuss publicly. I would also not assume a number of facts that are not in evidence currently, but again, we take these incidents very, very seriously. I announced in the French portion of my speech that we should come up with a result of our internal investigation within the next 2 weeks. Again, those will be made public. I think the discussion here is to see if and when there was any deficiency, if there was one, whether it is one that is systematic, and then how you then remedy that. What we will disclose to you in the next 2 weeks, obviously we can't disclose today, the investigation is not
So
complete,
just to
but we've
confirm,
prepared
though, you haven't
to pose it in
taken
the
any
next 2 weeks.
measures to change any procedures whatsoever?
Again,
Nothing has changed?
As I've said to you, we're currently investigating if and when there were any deficiencies and
Thank
what
you, I
measures
appreciate
need to be
that.
taken.
With my knowledge of immigration, the procedures are already known. In fact, your department has provided a list of how the procedures are undertaken. So to me, it's very clear, if you can follow the trail over the last number of years, you should be able to determine how it is, for example, that the fact that we weren't able to determine there was a 2015 ISIS video where one of the alleged terrorists was dismembering a prisoner back in 2015 that was circulating the internet. And yet 3 years later, he gained entry into Canada and in fact went through 6 different immigration streams since that time and ultimately gained
6.
Canadian citizenship. And in that time, there were 4 red flags flagged for that individual. 3 of them
Yep.
were risk indicators. Obviously, none of
Risk
them were taken
indicators.
seriously, or not to the extent that he was not allowed to continue down the immigration streams. What I did find interesting, though, Minister, is that in 2018, your government removed the requirement for police background checks, or officially called police clearance certificates from the country of origin, from countries like Pakistan. And Pakistan ultimately is a bit of a high-risk country, to say the least, so it is puzzling that that was done in 2018. This security check was removed, and now we know a student visa from Pakistan gained entry into Canada. Have you reinstated this security requirement, for example? That is an easy step that you could have taken by now.
Again, currently, you know that this individual was an asylum seeker. You know, again, that there are differences with respect to different requirements for and the reliability of police certificates at different stages. They vary in
Excuse
their
me, sorry,
quality.
I may have
and they
misspoke,
play
but I'm
into
talking
our
about
risk
the
assessment.
student visa from Pakistan, the latest alleged terrorist, not the son, but the student visa
Sorry,
from Pakistan.
again, and this may be within or not within the scope of this discussion, Mr. Chair. Again, the person, the latest alleged individual came in as a student from Pakistan.
Correct.
Again, the details that you have in your chronologies are the ones that I'm at liberty to speak to at this time.
Thank you, Minister. But I'm asking specifically about how in 2018 your government removed the requirement for police clearance certificates, ultimately police background checks from the country of origin, from countries like Pakistan. Now we have a student visa holder from Pakistan who did not receive the police, assuming he did not receive the police clearance certificate, unless you can correct me, but that requirement was removed in 2018. So there was a security check removed. That requirement was removed in 2018 from Pakistan for student visa holders. Now we have a situation where your government's brought in a student visa holder from Pakistan who's alleged to be a terrorist. He was on his way to Brooklyn, New York to massacre Jews. And there was a situation where there could have been an additional level of screening that your government removed in 2018. So have you reinstated the security requirement? I'm hearing that you have not done that. I do feel that that's something quite easy that you could do that could provide another layer of security. So this doesn't happen again.
Again, we rely
Is that
on
not reasonable?
we rely on our security partners to advise us as to the risk profile to take
Yeah.
with respect to
It's
these
just a common sense.
individuals.
Except they're not
Is it
screening them.
Again,
Right.
That's enough lies from Mark Miller. Except they're not screening them. Now, in your mind, hearken back to that graph we just showed you about the increase in temporary foreign students to the country. Now realize that the ones from high-risk areas are not being security screened. So they get
Nonsense.
here
Yes.
and they're not security screened. They get here. Look at that number. None of them are security screened from high-risk places like Pakistan. And then they get here and then they claim asylum without being screened. So
And-
we've got a ticking time bomb on our hands.
And even further than that, just the other day we were talking about the government of Canada forgiving
Right.
refugees and asylum seekers seeking entry into Canada for their convictions from their country of origin.
Right.
So even if there is a question on the application form that says, have you been convicted of a crime in your home country? And they say yes, the government of Canada just goes, well, good enough for us. Good enough.
Right.
Get in here, you guys. Get in here. But this was a masterclass by Mark Miller in no accountability, none whatsoever. And what the Liberals have done over the past 9 or 10 years is say, you know, we can't say anything at this time. We can't disclose anything, but we are investigating ourselves.
Right.
How has that
We-
worked out every single other time, Canada, when the Liberal government investigates itself? They find themselves completely in
Green
compliance.
slush fund.
That's right. We investigated ourselves and found nothing wrong with our behavior. Well, but that's right. Just wash their hands of their dirty deeds. But this is turning into a real big problem for Canada, I think, because as we see our crime statistics, and just listen, if you got 2 eyeballs and a functioning brainstem, you can see crime in your neighborhood right now increasing. You can see these things happen
Oh, for sure.
on the streets of Canada. And yet we have the government of Canada saying, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see here.
I
Couldn't
think
possibly because of our decisions.
police reported violent crime is up over 40%
It-
over the last decade.
Sure. I mean,
For sure.
drug trafficking, human trafficking, the whole gamut of major crimes. Those have increased probably proportionately. I wonder if we did a side by side about the increase in major crimes in Canada with the increase in immigration, whether there would be a correlation. If you
No.
will, I mean, if we asked a liberal government, they'd be
I
like,
bet you
nah,
could I bet
no.
you could overlay that graph of rising crime with
Mhm.
that other graph of temporary foreign students and foreign workers and the immigration graph, and they would almost be identical.
They'd overlap. Yes, they
Yeah.
would. Yeah.
Yeah. What does Trump say? They're not sending their best? They're not sending
Well,
their best.
why if you were a foreign nation with a bunch of no good doing
Yeah.
troublemakers, who would you most want to offload onto an accepting open arm nation.
Oh,
It
I
would
don't
be all of the troublemakers, the people that aren't doing your country any favors.
well, I don't begrudge the Egyptians. They're very strong on security, given their proximity to Gaza. So if they can, like, offload a few terrorists to the international world, I'm sure they don't care. Egypt first, right? Like, uh,
Right?
all right. On the flip side, I just don't like the idea of Canada being a net exporter of terrorism because we often are used as like a stopping ground, a launch pad for these guys. If they're not attacking us, they're figuring out how to get into the United States to attack them. And I think that that's not all that neighborly.